Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we're talking about why I decided to leave Fable. And this is kind of like the official announcement video that I'm doing for this. And upcoming videos, quite a few still might have Fable linked down below in the description. And the end card, the Stay Connected end card that I have at the end of most of my videos, will still have Fable. With videos that I've been recording recently since I've deleted it, I have updated those end cards and those descriptions for the Stay Connected sections to not include Fable. But like I said, this is the official video, and there's still quite a few videos that are going to be scheduled or that are scheduled to be published within the next couple of months that I just for like time, resources, and energy, I will not be updating those, but I do mention it a few times in some upcoming videos where I have been able to update it, or because I recorded them post or finished recording them post Fable deletion, I was able to update their end cards and the descriptions. This is like the official post, like, hey guys, I left Fable, so if that link doesn't work, if you're watching a video where it's still linked and it does not work, this is why. But I wanted to talk about some of the reasonings as to why I left Fable, because not that I need to give an explanation, but I felt like I wanted to, because I liked the idea of Fable, and I liked its intent, and I liked what it was doing. I like what it is doing for the reading and bookish communities. It just, for me at least, it wasn't what I need from a reading tracker app and what I expect. And oftentimes I just found myself forgetting about Fable, and then I would just update, like, it just was basically a rinse and repeat of what I was doing on the Storygraph app. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that here. This video is by no means dissing or hating on Fable. Like I said, I really love and appreciate what Fable is doing for the reading and bookish communities. I like the ideas behind it. It just was not for me, and wasn't what I need from a reading tracker app. So I have 6 main reasons why I left. These are like the biggest things. There were some smaller reasons, but these were like the main factors into me just saying, like, okay, I just need to delete my account and delete Fable. So the first one was the available statistics in the free version. Now, a large reason why this one factored in is because a lot of I did try Fable Pro. I think it's called a Fable Plus for a month, which I'll link down below in the description. But a lot of these statistics that you have to pay for in Fable Plus are ones. There's statistics that I get for free in the Storygraph app, and there are some different statistics that are offered in the Fable Plus, and more in-depth statistics offered in Fable Plus. But a lot of the other statistics that Fable was offering in Fable Plus are ones that I got for free, like I mentioned in the Storygraph app. And for me, it's like, my thinking was like, why am I using this app when I have a lot of these statistics already for free in the Storygraph app, and when I'm using the Storygraph app more? So a large part of it was that, like I said earlier at the beginning, I do use the Storygraph. I was using the Storygraph app more, and a lot of it was just me rinsing and repeating in Fable what I was doing with the Storygraph app. So that was like the first big reason. The available statistics, I had them for free in the Storygraph app without having to pay for them, like I did with Fable. So the second one is that, for me personally, this is a personal preference and a personal thing, and I think it started off with being so heavily influenced by Goodreads, is that, like, I started off with when reader trackers were not big social spaces. It was just, you could follow people, but they were just there where you could see what people were reading and you wouldn't really engage with it. And that's why you have Bookstagram and Book Talk now, and BookTube, but especially like Bookstagram and Book Talk, or not Book Talk, but especially Bookstagram and BookTube back then, because Goodreads was the reader tracker app, and then you could talk about those books on social media. And I do really like how Fable has opened up the availability, the space for both of those things to coincide in one space. And ideally, that's like perfection. But for me, it just wasn't working because it's like I wasn't engaging with the community very well, because I was engaging here on YouTube, here on BookTube, and on my Bookstagram account, and on Book Talk, even though I've like stepped away from Book Talk a little bit. I was engaging more on other social media platforms that I already had some sort of a community with, a bookish community with. Whereas on Fable, it's like I had to start all over again, and it's like, okay, I don't want to start all over again, so I'll just link my Instagram and my YouTube and my TikTok. Which, so it's just like, yeah, like I don't really see reader tracker apps as social apps. For me, a large part of it is like, I'm just trying to track my books here and track my reading and see what I've been reading, seeing how I've been rating them, and seeing those statistics. Like, that isn't really like a social thing for me. Even though I like sharing the statistics, the app itself, reader tracker apps, they're not really social spaces in my mind. But again, I really do like how Fable has merged the two. And you do get a little bit of social aspect on the Storygraph app, but it's not like super in your face. And you do have to take a couple steps to get to the more social side of things, but it's not like right there when you first open the app. So the third thing is the inability to track rereads to count towards particular years. And this is especially for people like myself, where there are some books that I reread on a yearly basis. I do not read them, or at the very least, I do not count them as rereads if they're in the same year. Like, I listen to The Hobbit and The Phantom Tollbooth and Lord of the Rings when I go to bed at night. I don't count those as rereads unless I'm like actively listening to them the next year. So, yeah, like, the inability to count rereads towards your yearly reading goal, or at least that first read of the year, because it's like if you're reading if you're reading a book in a new year, it's like my mind still counts that because it's in a new year. If I was reading, okay, like what's a good one? Under the Oak Tree, Volume 2. I read that this year for the first time. If I were to read it again this year, that would not count towards my yearly goal. But if I were to read it again in 2026, if I were to do a reread in 2027, that would count towards my 2027 yearly goal. And the fact that Fable doesn't have that, not that it really bothers me, but it's like, it's like if I'm reading it, and if I'm reading it thinking I'm going to count it towards that specific year's goals, then it's like, it's a little bit of like, oh, what the heck moment when it doesn't count towards it in Fable. So, whereas like the Storygraph app, a lot of these are things that I had access, that I have access to, a lot of access to in the Storygraph app. Like, I can mark things as a reread and I'll count towards that specific year. So it's like, it's that kind of a thing. And then the next one is the inability to add books. And this one was kind of one of the bigger ones for me, because oftentimes there were books that I either had access to in Fable or not had access to in the Storygraph app, or could add to the Storygraph app, that I did not have access to in Fable. And oftentimes it would be like 2 to 3, maybe even sometimes close to 5 books where this would happen with. So I would be technically on track, but according to the Fable app, because I couldn't add books in, I would be 2 to 5 books behind, quote unquote, even though I was technically on track or ahead. So it was just kind of like the inability to add books. And I'm totally fine. Like, I really like Storygraph. I really like their process for it, because it's like, you have to be signed in, you have to like have an email sent to your email with a code just to make sure like you are officially signed in. And then there's like a little bit of wait time, and usually it does get added, but there's like a process to it and like a wait time, but again, usually it does get added. So it's like I'm perfectly fine with that kind of a process if they were to introduce that to Fable, like the ability to add books. And so it's like that was like a big thing for me. The next one is the Nina feature. While it's useful and I really appreciate that Fable has it, it was like too many unnecessary steps. Where in the Storygraph app, I can just track my progress, or I can just click on the book title and then mark it as DNF'd. And I'm looking at like my currently reading thing in the homepage for the Storygraph. I'm looking at the currently reading tab. I can click on the book and it takes me to the book, and then I can click on did not finish. And with the Fable app, it was more so that it lets you track your progress in the book, but you have to DNF the book specifically. You can't mark it as DNF'd. You can mark a book as finished in the Fable app on your currently reading tab section, but to mark it as a DNF, which you can't do on that tab section, and you can't click on the book to go to the book, which if you were able to click on the book and go to the book through the currently reading tab and then mark it as DNF'd, that would be fine. But with this, it's like you had to go to your library and then you had to click on your library, and then that has like your want to read, currently reading, and then finished lists, and then you had to click on the currently reading list, and then you have to click on that book. So it's like there's like 2-3 extra steps in there. Whereas with the Storygraph app, I can just click on the book and mark it as do not finish. That's like 1-2 steps at most. So it's like, for me, it was like too many unnecessary steps, and like it was so much more quicker in the Storygraph app. So it's like, again, like even if it was just a situation in Fable where it's like I could click on the title, like on the homepage, I could click on the title in my currently reading section and then mark it as did not finish. Like, it was just too many steps. And then, yes, a lot of this is about accessibility and ease of access. And it's not that the lack of that access makes it harder. It's just compared to what I have, like I've mentioned a few times in this video, compared to what I have in the Storygraph app, it's just like, for me, it was like, why am I still using Fable when it's just being a rinse and repeat of the Storygraph app, and there's more steps and less statistics than the Storygraph app. So like that's where my thinking was. And then the last one was the lack of different editions. And this is kind of what got me, because it's like I absolutely, like I said, I really love Fable, but I really love in the Storygraph app how you can mark something as a physical book, an audiobook, or an ebook, a digital book. You can mark it as one of those three, and then that factors into the statistics for the end of the month and for the overall year. Whereas like in Fable, kind of like with Goodreads, but in Fable it was just the automatic assumption that like all the books were physical. And it's like I like seeing the breakdown of what I'm reading physically versus what I'm reading as audiobooks versus what I'm reading as ebooks, even though I don't do a lot of ebooks now. Like I like seeing the breakdown of those statistics. And honestly, it's like again, not all of these are like huge deals. Like they were deal breakers for me, but in like the grand scheme of things, this is a very first world problem. And in the grand scheme of things, these are not really deal breakers. It was just a lot, like I said, a lot of it was just ease of accessibility and ease of use, and what I personally expect from a reader tracker app. So like the lack of different editions and the lack of being unable, and the fact that we're unable to mark something certain ways, it was like, even if not unable, but like it's more steps to mark things certain ways. It's like in Fable app, you have to create like a shelf. It's like, this was audiobook, this was ebook, this was physical. And it's like, that's too much. That's basically what we had to do in Goodreads. And like, not that Fable is on the same level as Goodreads. It is absolutely not. It is far more advanced than Goodreads and far, far better than Goodreads. It was just like, in that respect, it's like, okay, we're going back to Goodreads days where we have to create different shelves for things. And or going back to the very basics here. So again, very much a personal preference, and those were the 6 main reasons why I personally left Fable. And again, this is not to diss on or hate on Fable, it's just my personal preferences and my personal expectations when going into a reader tracker app. And the Storygraph for me just works a whole lot better. So that is the end of this video. If you made it this far, tell me which reader tracker app you prefer down below in the comments, because I know that like for some people Storygraph is kind of confusing, which I get. I was kind of confused by the Storygraph at first too, but like let me know down below in the comments if you made it to this point what your favorite reader tracker app is. So with all of that said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in my next video.